Now, recently on the channel, you may have seen that I created some animal cake toppers. So far in the series, we have an elephant and a lion. Now, some of you have been sending me messages or commenting on those videos that you want to see a giraffe. So in this week's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this baby giraffe cake topper. Now, I will put a link in the description below to the other videos if you haven't already seen them. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe to the Cake Spaniels YouTube channel. Okay, let's get started. So in order to make my giraffe, first of all, I've got my modeling paste. Now for my giraffe, I'm going to be using a mixture of fondant and gum paste, or this one is the Squire's floral paste. I've got 70 grams of my gum paste and 90 grams of my fondant. So I'm going to mix those together, and all this is doing is creating a modeling paste which is as workable as fondant, but it will dry a lot more firm than fondant on its own. Now, if you don't have any gum paste, you can add a small amount of Tylose powder to your fondant, which will also help to firm it up. I've then divided it into 3 balls. So I've got a larger ball, which is around 145 grams. I'm going to colour this with the Colour Splash Sunflower Yellow. I've then got 2 smaller balls, which I've just divided the leftovers. And I'm going to colour this using the Colour Splash Dark Brown. I'm going to make a lighter brown and a darker brown. And a small amount of black and white. I've got some paint brushes, some edible tints. I've got a cream and a lemon yellow, which I'm going to use for some shadow, and a dusky pink to give him nice rosy cheeks. I've also got my edible glue, my Dresden tool, a craft knife, and a wooden skewer. Okay, so starting with his head, I've got a ball of my modeling paste, which is around 55 grams. Now I'm going to roll this out until all of the marks or creases have completely disappeared and it's nice and smooth. I'm then going to slightly push on that, flatten it, and just using my little finger, come down and just start pushing in, going all the way around, create a small dent. Now popping that down, adding a small amount of corn flour to stop that sticking. On the top half, I'm going to use the palm of my hand just to push that down and flatten that down slightly, keeping it quite rounded at the top. Now going in with my Dresden tool, I'm going to highlight that area that we marked with our little fingers, just bringing that round until it starts to look a little bit like a mushroom. And I'm going to push up from the back, just on the bottom, and this will be where his head joins his neck. So before I go any further, I'm going to take my stick and just push a hole. We'll be able to join that on when we've created the body. Now on the front of his face, I'm going to push my fingers in and just create 2 dips, just bringing those up. This is just going to create a raised area on the center, and I'm going to smooth those out as they get to the top. On the front, I'm going to add some nostrils. So I'm going to push it in with my Dresden tool and just pull up slightly so that they're slightly thinner at the top. And you want them so they're slightly angled into the center. For his eyes, I'm going to take my Dresden tool and come up around 1/2 centimeter and just create 2 small ovals, which are around 1.5 centimeters apart. I'm also going to mark in his eyebrows, so around 1 centimeter up. I'm just going to put 2 small dents. Now taking 2 small pieces of my black fondant, roll these out into identical ovals, and with some edible glue, pop these inside those holes. Now to bring his eyes a little bit more to life, I've got a really small amount of white, and I'm going to pop 2 small white circles in the center of his eyes. Taking some of that lighter brown, I'm going to taper off both sides, trim 2 pieces off, which are around 3 to 4 millimeters in length, and pop these into place where we added the marks for his eyebrows, just rounding them down. Now I'm going to add 2 ears and 2 horns to the top. Now for his ears, I'm going to take 2 small balls, and these ones are around 1/2 centimeter in diameter. Tapering one side to create a point and just flattening that down. Take the other end of my Dresden tool and just push it in and pull along. And this is going to create just a lip at the top of his ear and just pinch that off. I'm going to do the same for the other side. Now, in order to make these stick, I'm going to trim off that point on the bottom. On the side of his head, push a small dent where his ears are going to go. Now, using a very small amount of edible glue, using my ball tool, just connect that gum paste. Do the same on the other side. Now, on the top of his head, we're gonna add his antlers or his horns. So I've got 2 small balls, the same size as we used for his ears, and 2 smaller balls of the light brown. I'm gonna roll that into a sausage shape and take one of my balls and just push that on the end. Start rolling these so they join together. Now I'm just pushing on the ends, just bringing it back so they don't become too thin. Trim those down so they're around 1 centimetre. Now these are going to go on the top of his head. I'm going to use the edge of my dredging tool just to pull some of that modelling paste onto his head and just make them stick. So in between his horns, I'm going to have some tufts of hair. So I've got a small ball of the lighter brown. Taper that down as I did with his ears. And using my dredging tool from the point, I'm going to pull back to add in some marks to make it look like hair. And I'm going to do a slightly smaller one. Push this into place so it looks like it's coming from behind. You then want to add in some of the distinctive giraffe spots. Now, giraffe spots are not always complete circles, so I'm taking some small balls and just on the top of his head, you might need a small amount of edible glue, just flattening it flush on the top. And I'm going to do that with a few, just coming all the way down. Now, once his head is ready, I'm going to pop this to one side just for it to dry slightly while I work on his body. So I've got 60 grams of my modelling paste and I want to create quite a long, thin body. Even though it's a baby giraffe, we want to give him a long neck. Taper that down. I'm going to push this onto my work surface so that we get a thin cone shape. On the front, I'm going to put 2 dents where his legs are going to sit. Now, taking my skewer, I'm going to cut this so it's around 1.5 inches taller at the top. Now, I'm going to push this all the way down into his body. At the front, I'm also going to pull the back up slightly and just angle it down so that when we place his head on, it's going to sit in that gap. I'm going to pop a small amount of edible glue just around the top of that stick. So for his back legs, I've got 2 balls of my modelling paste that are 10 grams each, and for his 2 front legs, I've got 2 balls which are 6 grams. Now I'm also going to be using some of my dark brown. Now to start with, I'm going to work on his back legs. Taking the larger ball to start with, I'm going to taper that down slightly at one end and just bring that along to a long sausage shape. I then want to trim it off just over 1 inch. So we've got a sharp end on one side. Taking a ball of my darker brown, run that around between your fingers to create smooth sides with a flat top and bottom. Use some edible glue and stick this onto the end of my leg. Now taking the end of my dredging tool, I'm going to push that in, sticking this on to the side of my giraffe. I'm then going to take my dredging tool and just create a crease where that leg meets his body, and do the same on the other side. So there we've got his 2 back legs. Okay, so for his front legs, I'm going to take one of the smaller balls of my modelling paste and just start to roll that out, tapering down one end. Now, on some of my other animal cake toppers, I usually start the front legs just under the head, but because we want him to look like he's got a long neck, I'm going to start them halfway down. Now, I'm going to trim my leg so it's just over inch. Taking another ball of my darker brown, work that round into the hoof shape. Now on a giraffe, they have a knee joint, so I'm going to go in with my fingers and just pop 2 little marks in the side. Now taking my giraffe, I'm going to bring that in. It just comes round the side of his body. Using my Dresden tool, push that modelling paste against the side. It looks like they're one piece. Now I'm also going to go in and just put a bend mark in. Now I'm going to do exactly the same to the other side. With some of that yellow, roll this into a long thin strand, and this is going to be for his tail. In the back of his body, I'm going to put a small hole, pop the end of that, push it in place with your Dresden tool, and I'm going to bring that around so that it sits on the back of his leg. Now, just as we did with his hair, I've got a ball of the lighter brown, which is just over 1/2 centimetre in diameter. I'm going to taper that down into a point. With the end of my Dresden tool, I'm going to start at that point and work backwards, just pulling up, add in a hair mark, and attach this to the end of his tail. Now, just as we did with his face, we want to add on some of those giraffe markings. Taking some of those small pieces of my light brown modelling paste, I'm going to attach those onto his body and just pull those, flattening them down. Now, as well as his front, I'm also going to add a few onto his back. So now we have his head and his body. I'm going to add a little bit more colour just to bring him to life. So starting with some dusky pink edible tin, I'm adding some of that to his cheeks. I'm also going to go inside his ears. I'm then going to take a small amount of lemon yellow and some cream. Now mixing the two of these shades together, use this first of all just inside his nostrils. Now on his body, I'm going to use that just to create some shadow arms and just in those creases that we made. So now we've got our head and our body. You want to make sure that you've left the body long enough for the main part to firm up slightly. Now it's really important when making a character where the head is as big as the body to let the two halves dry slightly before you add them together, else the weight of the head is going to push down on the body and you're going to get this concertina effect where it just pushes that fondant all the way down and it becomes really wide at the bottom. So once they've been drying and that is a lot firmer, I'm going to take some of my edible glue and just pop that around the top of his neck. Now where we've got the hole at the bottom that we made, I'm going to slide the head on and just position it forward slightly. Now I'm going to use my Dresden tool just to push the two pieces together. And once you're happy with how that's looking, here we have our baby giraffe cake topper. Now I'm going to leave that until that has completely dried and he's then ready to pop onto the top of our cake. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and please let me know in the description below if there's another animal topper that you want to see. If you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget you can subscribe to the Cake Spanish YouTube channel. So until next time, bye!